So today on this beginner series for Final Cut Pro version 10.3, I'm going to show you how to work with opacity adjustments and a little bit on compositing blend modes. So just popping over here, I've got this nice little, very short film that I've just kind of thrown together with a few clips from a video project called Solomon. And I'm going to just just show you very briefly. So we have just a few sort of series of cuts. Smoking a cigarette, looking out the window, glancing out, writing, a few images, starting to put together a story. Now what the opacity does basically is it's, we're going to have a look at this one on top first, and then we'll look at this one underneath. So what the opacity is basically how see-through a clip is. So if I take this first clip here, and I can go, there's another different ways of accessing the opacity. So let's go into our inspector and go to the very first option here, which is your compositing opacity. Now, right now it's at 100%, which basically means it's opaque. It's you can't see through it at all. So despite the fact that the videos are playing at the same time, you would know if the sound was up. I've got the sound down, but the videos are playing at the same time, but it jumps straight from one to another, just like it's a cut. If, however, I was to take the opacity down, let's take it here. So this is one way of adjusting the opacity. So if I take that and drag it down to about 47, 50, you can start to see already what starts to happen. So if I just play this here, now it cuts in quite abruptly. Now what has happened here is that this layer hasn't been affected at all, but this top layer has now become more see-through. It's a little bit like tracing paper. So it's actually become more see-through, so you're starting to see what is underneath. The less opaque it is, the more the underneath layer starts to come through. So if I just play that there, it's writing on top of the street walking. So another way of accessing the opacity is by opening up the video animation. You access that by hitting Control V, the shortcut's Control V, and that opens up our video animation. You can also do this, if I just close out of that, by control clicking on the mouse and opening up our show video animation option here. It's going to open up, and the very first option here is compositing opacity. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see here what this adjuster is very similar to our sound adjustments. This adjusts the opacity like a volume control up and down. So I'm going to take it down here. That shows kind of a nice kind of little bit of the image through the writing. So if I play that again, start to see the images. Depending on the light levels of each one, you might have to adjust the opacity in different ways. Now if I were to take this back up to 100%, now similarly again, it's almost identical to our sound adjusters. We have these little beads that appear. They're sort of not visible at all until you're hovering the mouse over them. You can grab hold of these and draw these in. And what these do are create a fade in and a fade out for the visuals. So the opacity adjusts from 0, so from nothing, you can't even see it, up to 100, stays at 100, and then fades out. And if I just play that for you. That has essentially created a crossfade, which is very similar to exactly what a crossfade would do on your timeline, but you've done it in the layer above. You might not want it to come all the way up to 100, maybe you'll just take it all the way up to around 50, so the other image might never quite fully come through. So I just do that and just play it full screen so you can see. There we go, so we're starting to work on these opacity layers. Now I wouldn't suggest, if you're going to work with the opacity, you're generally working on the layer that's on top. If you apply the same adjustment to the layer that's underneath, all that happens is that it's like layering one piece of tracing paper on top of the other. Is that neither image is completely kind of visible, and what's completely underneath it is black. It's absolutely nothingness. Unless you wanted to add another layer underneath, you would generally pretty much just apply the compositing mode to the layer that is on top. Now the compositing modes have a couple of different features. This is your standard compositing, which is your normal blend mode. It's just like a cross dissolve, like layering one on top of the other. However, up here in our blend mode, we have a few different options, and they all have very different looks. So you've got it's like 5 or 6 different sections, 6 I think in total. So the first little gathering of 5 different options are all part of the multiply. And what the multiply ones do is that they work with the areas of dark that exist within an image, and they pretty much just apply. So it just blends the areas in here that are dark, so like the door and the frame and all those kind of moments. It's going to blend those darker elements with the image underneath. So if I go to multiply, it's a very, very different look. It's a completely different effect to what I had before. If I bring it right up, you can see where those elements start to come into play. So it's blending all these dark areas. The option beneath it, now all these are just sort of different versions of this same application, but it creates some very interesting effects. So let's just blend that one in there. It's got a fade in, start to see it going through. Darken, another option. So you can see it's subtracted all of this white area and it's allowed the image to show through. Color burn. I'm going to colour in this image anyway, but you can see it nice and strong. So they're just ones you can have a play with. The next one is along just the opposite thing, so it takes all the whites. There you go. So all of those lovely whites are still in play, and it just works. Just looks through those. You can see the images lying underneath. The ones here overlay, that works with the midtones. So it subtracts the midtones and kind of works mainly with the darks and the lights on either side of that. Not always the easiest to see in these images. And again, within that you have lots of different variations on how those are applied and how they look. It creates some very interesting effects. The ones beneath it here, the difference in exclusion, that's to do with colour. It creates a lot of kind of a negative type effects. Yeah, so you can see the underneath layers and put into negative. That's really beautiful. So he's going to walk into a negative of himself as he writes over it. And then the stencils, that's a kind of a really interesting one as well. Oh, it's not quite particularly that. Stencil Luma, so that's one that'll take, it's to do with the light levels, so it subtracts, it creates a stencil using the different light levels. So if I just bring that in there. So you're just seeing him kind of on the page that's being written through. So you've got all these different ones. Now again, because I have this layer underneath, let's have a little look at the kind of compositing modes and how they apply to this one. So I've got a normal here, and I'm going to, actually it's quite nice with some of the colour burns and things. So look, yes, so it's very interesting. So underneath this image actually I have you can see here, it basically is normal here, but that's because there's nothing it's layering with until this image starts to come into play. So let me just play how this looks going. So I've got some slow motion feet writing underneath it. Because let's see if the fade in, fade out of the opacity of the underneath layer makes any difference. Yep, it's going to make a little difference as the two clips start to interact with one another. So the footsteps kind of walking through. So the compositing modes themselves are kind of they're really fun for creating really interesting visuals. They're good fun for text, for working with text, and how those layers can be applied. Applying textures to things. This is where things like your generators, which we don't usually use very much, can on occasion create some really interesting effects. Glimmer, drifting, can apply some nice textures and things. Let's look at this one. Let's just make that a little bit shorter. So I'm not too keen on this as it currently stands, but if I apply a compositing mode, let's get rid of the darker ones. So when we work with screens, we just have these light areas applied. And I'm also going to apply a colour correction to this to get rid of those blue tones. Let's desaturate it completely. There we go, to match in. You can barely see them, they're really, really tiny. But you can apply these really interesting kind of effects. Let's have a look at one of the others actually and see. Screen color. Or add. Start so you can just see them very subtly kind of floating through the image. Getting these interesting kind of glowing moments. So it can be very interesting just for adding textures to text, to images, to scenes. So that's basically kind of how the compositing mode is. It's just something to play with and have fun for quite creative effects. So enjoy. Thank you very much for watching.